What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Big Five Pod, episode number 47. It's actually episode number 47 this time. As you know, Cope, math can be hard for me sometimes. I think you too. I think we share the same sentiment on that. That's why we were not math majors. We're not anything of the kind. Anyhow, I'm Kyle Morello. I'm your co-host. And next to me here is my other co-host, Jake Copestick. How we doing?
We're doing well. We're doing well. Kind of, it has slowed down the last couple weeks. To echo you, first of all, yeah, I had big time in trouble with math, and I'm still not that good at it.
Yeah.
But Kyle, it's about to be Memorial Day weekend. I
Yeah.
might be headed to the beach. I might make an appearance down there.
Ooh.
But regardless, whether I do or not, summer's here. Summer's here. The weather's been beautiful. Summer's here.
Yeah,
So
man.
I couldn't be better right now. The sun's out almost every day. Summer's almost here. It's about to kick off. I'm a very happy man right now. I just got to wear a lot of sunscreen. That's the only downside
Yeah,
now is when, yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah.
got burned
Listen,
Sunday. I was at a football camp. I got there at about 9:15. I left at about 11:30, and I think it was sunny for maybe an hour. And my face got fried because I wore I wore my signature long sleeves and shorts look, so my arms didn't get burned, but my face got fried a little bit.
yeah. Yeah. Listen, for those of you who have never been around Cope in person, during, I'd say probably between the months of May and October, this man's always got the sunscreen on deck. Always got the sunscreen on deck. Usually it's the cream too, so he's just easy rubbing off top. And listen, I don't blame you. You burn easily. I am not as fair skinned as you, so I don't get burned as easily, but I do get burned. So I understand. I had to put on. I was at the Phillies game today with work. Shout out to the union, of course. And I don't think I got burned a little bit, but I definitely put on a couple layers of sunscreen. It's that time of year. Protect yourself, people. You cannot defeat the sun. You
You're not
can't.
stronger than the sun.
You're not
Nobody is.
stronger than the sun. You're gonna lose to
Nobody's
the
stronger than the
sun
sun.
10 times out of 10. Don't do it. Don't do it. That's why basketball's played indoors. At least during the regular months of basketball. So why don't we get into some basketball? I know it's not a lot right now. Like we said, it's the summer. Not a ton going on, but there's still some player movement. There's still some coaching movement, and their schedules being finalized. So we're going to do that in that order. So let's start with the biggest news of the last week. Lance Ware, we talked about on the last episode how he was visiting Villanova, the Kentucky transfer. Well, he is committed to the Wildcats. He will be going to the main line to play next year alongside Eric Dixon in the front court. As we said last time, Lance Ware is from Camden, New Jersey, went to Camden High School, so pretty much a local product. Was the 46th ranked prospect in the ESPN Top 100 class of 2020, and didn't really get a ton of minutes at Kentucky. Played behind Oscar Tshiebwe. Obviously, we talked about that last time. It's not really going to work. He's really good, but I do think this is a really, really good get for Villanova. Definitely adds more depth in the front court, which they needed, and we've talked about I don't know, the last 3, 4, 5 episodes in a row. I mean, especially when we're talking about Hunter Dickinson. So, Cope, I know we talked a little bit about it last time, but now that's official, want to get your thoughts on Lance Ware committing to the Wildcats and playing for Villanova in 23-24.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. Phil's an absolutely huge need for them. Going to kick Eric Dixon to the four, a position that's probably more his speed. He's now has the ability to take some forwards off the dribble, create a little bit of mismatches with what he can do. Stretch the floor a little bit. He shot the ball pretty well from three toward the end of the season, so he'll be able to, if you're gonna have Lance Ware be one guy in the middle or a guy that's setting a lot of screens, you can have Eric Dixon now on the perimeter a little bit and stretch the floor. So it's huge. And look, it's not a crazy role that you're gonna project here for Lance Ware. You don't need him to pour in a ton of points. You don't even need him to throw up double doubles a ton. You just need a guy that's going to clean up misses. It's going to give you a shot blocker that they didn't have last year, and just be an energy guy and give them a traditional center, a guy that can set screens as a lob threat. Just do typical big guy things. They needed a guy like that. Now they have that. And although he didn't play a lot, we talked the last episode behind Olivier Sarr, behind Isaiah Jackson, last 2 years behind, of course, Oscar Tshiebwe. I think there's something here with Lance where I'm not saying top 10 lottery pick type talent, but I think there's a lot more here than just the 2 points and the 2 rebounds that you see that he averaged last season if you give him some extended minutes. So Bill's a huge need, and I think he's going to produce a lot more than 2 points, 2 boards than he did last season at Kentucky. He's going to have to play a lot more. He's going to fill a huge need, kick Eric Dixon to the floor, give Villanova a body down low that can block some shots, and give them a dimension that they didn't have last year.
Yeah, and they were sorely missing that dimension. I mean, as you mentioned, as we've mentioned, a bunch on this show, Eric Dixon was obviously a really, really good center, but an undersized one. They need someone who has more shot blocking ability, has more rebounding ability, can get up for those boards, and Lance Ware provides that. And like you said, kicks Eric Dixon to the four, maybe more of a natural position for him, allows him to be more focused probably on offense than having to protect the rim. It's a good thing. It's a really, really good thing. And it's probably in the same breath, like I think Lance Ware's probably just as excited as Villanova fans should be because, he's getting a fresh start. He's still going to a blue blood. I mean, I would call Villanova a blue blood. I think we all would at this point. It's good. It's good all around. A classic win-win. Love to see it. All right, moving on. We don't talk about LaSalle player news a lot, but we have a little bit. So this is good. LaSalle hosting Florida international transfer Darian Prescott. This was on Tuesday, May 16th, so last week, but just finding out about it and getting to it now. Big guy, 7-foot center, about 215 pounds. He's from Philly, which is the important part. He played high school at Math, Civics, and Sciences, and he wasn't the only one. LaSalle's not the only school, rather, that he's visiting. He visited Fairfield on May 11th per the Portal Report, which shout out the Portal Report. They are phenomenal what they do. Also got a call from Temple for what it's worth. But listen, he's got offers from some lower-ish level schools, but it's from Philly, big guy. LaSalle could definitely use that, some more front court depth, just like we talked about with Villanova. What do you make of this?
So this is another team in LaSalle that needs a big guy. We talked about them with Naeem McLeod, who of course going to Syracuse. I would like to see LaSalle get a more experienced big guy. Now, look, I'm not going to say it's slim pickings because there's a bunch of people in the portal, but there is a lot of options that are kind of off the table that have committed other places. They had contacted Keyshawn Kelman, who's of course going to Florida Gulf Coast, who we broke down. But I would like to see an experienced guy here, but at the same time, they just need a big body. They need a big guy. And he didn't play last year at Florida International, so to bring in a guy like him doesn't have that experience, but could kind of grow with Rokas and could give you two young centers to build with for the future, I think could be good. So don't love that there's no experience there, but this is a need. Because if something happens to Rokas, they don't have anybody right now that's going to be able to step in. So and bring a local guy home from Math, Civics, and Sciences right on Broad Street. So bring him home. He'd be able to play here because he didn't play at Florida International last year. Would be able to play here. Would back up Rokas, who I think is going to have a breakout year. So it's not like Darian Prescott's going to get started minutes necessarily unless something happens, because I do think Rokas is in for a pretty big year this year. But they need a backup big to get a young guy that can help grow with the program. I think it's huge. So I don't love that it's not an experienced player here, but certainly fills a need. LaSalle needs a big guy in the worst way.
Yeah, they do. And I think it matters that he's from this area. We talk about it all the time with coaches, with players, with whatever. Keeping people from Philly in Philly is huge. So it would definitely be something good. And like you said, they need front court depth because after Rokas, I don't really know who they have. And, I know he hasn't played a lot, but you can't teach size. You can teach how to use the size. And I think that's something that Fran Dunphy Company would be able to do. But you can't teach size. He's got that. Definitely something you can work with. So,
yeah. And then I'm looking at these teams that have reached out to him. You have Richmond, who I don't know how good they're going to be next year. Of course, it seems like Chris Mooney, which is awesome to hear. He's going to be healthy. He's going to be back on the sidelines next year after having to step away from the team. But Jacksonville State, Coppin State, Northwestern State, some other smaller schools reached out to him. I think Texas A&M Commerce is one of them too. Very, very small school in the Southland. Pretty good league, the A10, and you can go home. Like if you're splitting hairs with Richmond and LaSalle here, I don't know why you wouldn't pick the Explorers. So solely looking at these teams, I think LaSalle's actually got a pretty good shot to get him. I haven't heard anything since he took the visit. I saw a couple tweets that said it went well, so there's that. But I think they actually have a really good shot here.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, it just makes a lot of sense. And I think that it's easy for him to just be like, hey, I'm going home. especially if it's the two best teams on that list are the two A10 teams in Richmond and LaSalle. It makes a lot of sense. So we will definitely keep you updated on that. But speaking of players who are from Philadelphia that are looking to transfer potentially back into the city, Will McNair Jr., formerly of Mississippi State, entered the transfer portal, has heard from Temple. Don't know about any visits or anything. Hasn't put out any lists of who he might be considering or whatnot. But he has heard from Temple, and we do know that. Like we said, from Philadelphia, went to Martin Luther King High School. Another big man, 6'10", 265. He spent 4 years New Mexico State before this past season at Mississippi State. He famously, well, maybe not him famously, but the New Mexico State team that beat UConn in 2022 in the first round. He was on that team, played 33 minutes, scored 4 points. So this could be something too. I mean, Temple, as we've talked about, has gotten a lot of guards in the transfer portal. They've gotten one big man in Steve Settle III. They're probably looking for more. So this could definitely be a good get for them. But I wanna hear more about Will McNair Jr. What do you got for me? How could he fit into this Temple team?
Well, as far as the 3-pointers that, of course, we're going to talk about when we talk about what Adam Fisher wants to know, not really going to provide that. Only 3 career 3-point makes. Now, he did play on the worst 3-point shooting team in America last year, Mississippi State, who, of course, their season ended because they missed a wide open 3-pointer against Pittsburgh in the first 4. So, can't really provide you with some shooting. 4 here and there, can step out and make, but not someone who you're going to rely on anyone to obviously fire him up. He's a natural back to the basket center, not overwhelmingly athletic. He's a tough dude, will rebound. You know, didn't draw up crazy numbers, but at the same time went from the WAC to the SEC last year, Power 5, one of the best conferences in America. But he's a back to the basket guy. So, you know, he's gonna try and get putbacks for rebounds. He wants to catch the ball real deep in the paint, body you with the size he has, and go up and finish. So to me, like, I see this, and it's great. Look, he's been in college 5 years. He had the redshirt year, his freshman year, New Mexico State. Followed Chris Jans to Mississippi State, so he's played in the SEC, has been to the tournament a couple times. But I see this, and I'm just like, yeah, it would be cool. Like, this isn't like an overwhelming like move for me. Like, I think it's awesome that he's a Philly guy and wants to come home, and he would give Adam Fisher another big that they're going to need, and who's had playing time, had experience, played in a bunch of games this year. 2 years ago, New Mexico State, that team that beat UConn, started most of the games. So a very experienced guy. The numbers aren't going to wow you, and I mean, I guess look, you got to have one guy in the paint. You got to have one guy
Yeah.
rebounding. If you're going to have 4 guys spread the floor, um, I guess you need a big like that. So he gives him some depth. But I see this and I'm like, hey, like, not like an overwhelming, like, crazy move, but I think it'd be good if you need bigs like they do. But the numbers, the production, and of course a guy that's not gonna, be a 3-point threat. I see that and I'm like, yeah, like, it would help. Um, but not like a move that I'd be like over the moon about, I guess. I'm just kind of like,
Yeah.
yeah, like it would be cool.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. Obviously the 3-point numbers aren't really anything at all, and especially coming from the worst 3-point shooting team in the country, Mississippi State last year. But like we've mentioned before on this podcast, they just need guys. They need to fill some roster spaces, and they've done that. But getting a couple other players would help. And like you kind of just said, I'm not like overwhelmed by this. Like, I think if they get him, sure, great. It's a player to work with. He played in the SEC last year. He obviously has some talent. If they don't get him, okay, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, but obviously, you want to try to land as many people as you can and as many talented people as you can. So we hope that Temple lands him, and we will keep you updated on that front.
He does have some high majors that are reaching out to him, though. Of course, shout out to the Portal Report doing great work with lists and getting commitment news for us.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Georgetown, Western Kentucky, who Steve Lutz from Texas A&M Corpus Christi just took over, George Washington, UTEP, and Tulsa as well. So I guess you would want to steal him away from having to play against him in conference, because they're certainly in the midst of a huge rebuild
Yeah.
down there in Tulsa. So there's
Yes.
he's still got a high major interest. Anytime there's a guy that's been in college for 4 or 5 years, that and played in the tournament, started a bunch of games for tournament teams like that, that's certainly valuable. You're gonna have people coming after you. So you're gonna have to make quite the pitch, I guess, even with him being from here, because he does have some high majors reaching out to him. That of course could offer him some NIL money that maybe Temple can't match.
And that's the way it is nowadays.
Or
NIL's king. NIL's taken over. I mean, we've seen that a lot with Villanova being probably the biggest one. I mean, they bring in the most talent of the big five teams. So they, I don't want to put down any other teams, but let's be real here. They've been the best team in the big five by far for 2 decades. So yeah, I mean, it just makes a lot of sense. But speaking of the Wildcats, we're going to move on to some coaching stuff here. And this position that we're about to tell you about in any sporting program might be the most underrated one. So this news is definitely a big deal, and I don't want to hear otherwise because it's not like technically an on-court coaching position. But Villanova strength and conditioning coach John Shackleton is leaving the program. This was announced this past week, and just based off the social media response that we saw to this, people are not loving that. He was very well respected, it seemed like, in the Villanova circles. I didn't know a ton about him personally. I'm not going to act like I did, but just from reading up on it for this episode, it definitely seemed like this is a big loss. I mean, he was there for 11 seasons. Before that, he was the assistant strength coach for Villanova football. Was at University of Pittsburgh too, so he's been around. I mean, he's obviously they've been doing something right, and he's been doing something right. So not really sure why he's leaving. I don't know if you have more to explain on that. Definitely do. But what do you make of this? Because this does not seem like a positive thing for the Wildcats.
yeah, I watched a couple interviews. I know he was interviewed on, I believe it was Fox Sports or CBS Sports. One time they did a little package on him, and Jay Wright was like, "Look, like every time like, we bring in a new assistant coach or a guy leaves to take another job, like that's what my job is to do is to groom another guy to be a head coach or to groom another assistant to do the job, and the cycle keeps going." He's like, "I don't really have a replacement for John Shackleton," and he called him probably the most important person like in their program. Everything to strength and conditioning, hydration, nutrition, so many different aspects of athlete performance is what he did. And you look at some of their guys. I mean, Caleb Daniels, as he had calves the size of tree trunks. Like you look at their guys, they're strong guys. All the Nova players, for the most part, are very well put together, and especially when you see guys that are there 2, 3, 4 years, you can notice how much bigger and how much stronger they get. I mean, look at Eric Dixon. He was in great shape this year. He looked like he slimmed down a lot, and he looked like he was in great shape. And you look at all their guys, and they're chiseled and they're strong. So certainly a really important guy to the program whose results quite literally you saw on the court. You saw how those guys, even with short lineups, they were conditioned well and they didn't get tired. And guys are strong. So, yeah, really, really big loss here, I guess, for Nova's program. I don't know what his next move is. I'm not going to act like I do, but at the same time, when you look at the work that he did, my thinking is, hey, maybe he can be an individual trainer for a professional athlete or for a professional team. He's built up that resume. He's been on a championship basketball team and part of a
Multiple.
championship program. Yeah, exactly. So to me, that's I guess what my thinking is like, hey, he's probably has the opportunity to get paid more by a professional club or professional athlete themselves. So yeah, it's a big loss. I guess something that you don't really think about too often. I don't think it, I guess when you think of a team, you think about the well, I guess in Philadelphia, not really, because if you listen to sports radio, people when a team has a lot of injuries, they like complain about the
Right.
trainers and the nutritionists and all of that. But you think of the head coach and the assistants. You don't really think about the strength and performance enhancement coach. But when you hear people talk about how important he was, how good of a job he was doing, it makes you it does make you think that this is a big loss. So I don't know what the plan here is to replace him, but it certainly seemed like John Shackleton was a very involved part of this program, very important, and it's going to be missed, but probably on the much bigger and better things for him because I'm sure he'll make regardless he'll make a lot of money and have a lot of success doing this probably to pro level.
Oh, probably. I mean, I have no doubt that he's gonna, whatever his next move is, that's gonna be a very successful one. Because obviously, he's built himself a hell of a resume being the strength and performance enhancing coach at Villanova. I mean, like we just said, he won multiple championships. He's been in charge of having boys become men in the weight room. I mean, it doesn't seem like, excuse me, it doesn't seem like it's a lot, but it is. I mean, when you got athletes who are performing at the highest level, you have to train them right and you have to condition them right. And on top of that, I was just thinking about this too while you were talking. Like, I also think it's very much on the strength coach to have them be in a condition where they're hitting their free throws like the Villanova does at the end of games when they're that tired. Like, you know what I mean? Like, not that this is anywhere close to this, but when I was playing rec basketball growing up, my dad was my coach. I think I mentioned this before in the podcast, and he always made sure that we would like do suicides or do running, whatever, and then immediately after we would shoot free throws. So we would know what it'd be like at the end of the game to shoot a free throw. And I'm not saying that he did that exactly, but you see how good that they've been. And I feel like some of that has to be because of the conditioning that John Shackleton put them through to have them be good from the tip off to the last minute of the game. So it's
Yeah.
an important loss for them.
Well,
And
also I've heard Jay Wright say this before in interviews. You know why Villanova was so good at shooting free throws? Because he recruited guys that could make free
well, that too, obviously,
throws.
obviously, but you know, and but that's also part of it too. Like he probably talks to his staff and be like, hey, like this guy will work. This guy will, you know, it won't get tired as much too. Like it's just it's all encompassing. And even though my fingers didn't lock there, there we go. It's all encompassing. It's all connected. And Jay Wright was obviously, you know, he's a Hall of Fame coach for a reason because he hires guys like this to be on his staff. So definitely a big loss for the Wildcats. All right, moving on. Uh, Temple's making a coaching hire too. Temple's hiring Cam Winter as a special assistant to the head coach. And that name might sound familiar. You want to know why it sounds familiar? It's because you just saw him play in the NCAA tournament. He led the team in scoring against Texas in the round of 32 in the game that they lost. Had 16 points in that one. Before that, if you still think you've heard of him from before that, it's because he played 4 years at Drexel. He was part of the team that won the Colonial and went to the NCAA tournament in 2021 before losing to Illinois, who was the Big Ten champ that year, of course. My pick to win that year did not work out for me. But regardless, listen, this is obviously a very big Adam Fisher move saying, hey, you were a very good player for me last year, though he was the assistant, of course. Likes his basketball mind. Come join my staff. Come get some coaching experience. Personally, I think it's a great hire because he's also very similar in age to the players who were there, so he can definitely go through his experiences, help them out. And was a good player in his own right. So, I want to know your thoughts too. What do you think of Ken Winter coming to North Broad for Adam Fisher?
Yeah, this is an awesome story. It's such a super cool story for a guy that just got done his playing career, just got done exhausting his eligibility, going to hop right into the coaching realm, and for the guy who he just was a player under last year. So really cool story. And you look at his accomplishments too. Since well, so if you look at his entirety, you know, obviously that he played 5 years. Guys have inflated stats. I mean, look at Antoine Davis, almost breaking the record because he played 5 years and averaged so many points. But if you include obviously his fifth year at Penn State along with his years at Drexel, he's one of 9 Division I players since the 92-93 season to have accumulated 1,900 points, 600 career assists, 600 rebounds, also had 160 steals. Shout out to the Temple Owls website for that stat. But
Well,
very accomplished player, and he made the most of his 5 years. And now he's going to be coaching as well. Yeah, I think it's a super cool story. Anytime you see something like this, and you see a guy that just got done playing and clearly the coaches see like a future for him in this, and they see a high basketball IQ and a big time character guy who can relate to the players, and they want him to, they want a guy like this to be around the program and get a start in coaching. So super cool story. And look, last couple years, Temple's had to deal with a lot of injuries. I'm crossing my fingers that that doesn't happen, but in the event that one does, you got yourself another guy who you can practice with, and he'll probably still be handing out buckets if you need it in
oh
the
yeah,
scrimmage and be in the gym practicing. So I'm sure he'll be Jones into him. I'm sure Cam Winter will want to take off his polo or whatever. You know, he's in at practice or a game and get out there. And hey, pretty damn good 3-point shooter that year at Drexel that they made the tournament. Shot 40% from three last year. Led the team in scoring against Texas that they almost came back and won. So it's a shame he can't suit up this year because he obviously played it out of Fisher's system last year and shot the ball pretty damn well. It's a shame he can't suit up one more year and play for Temple because they could use his shooting for sure. But awesome story anytime you see something like this. And going to be pretty cool to see how he progresses in the coaching ranks. I'm sure he'll, if there's an assistant that at least or a head coach at Temple, this is probably a prime candidate to step into an assistant coaching role. So good for him getting the start. Always cool to see stuff like this.
No, absolutely. I mean, like, I just think it'll be easy for Cam Winter to teach Adam Fisher's system at a level that Adam Fisher might not be able to, because obviously coaches are great teachers, and it seems like Adam Fisher will be that. Obviously, the jury very much still out. He's not coached a game yet. But I think having someone who just played in there is huge. I mean, he can just easily relate to the players. He just did it. And was a pretty accomplished player in his own right, as you mentioned. So great hire for Adam Fisher. I definitely think this is a home run for sure. For sure. We did miss a high school recruit, so we'll do that now. Curtis Givens III, listed Villanova in his final 7 schools. Class of 2024, 4-star guard, 58th in the country on the ESPN Top 100. His final 7 is this, obviously Villanova, LSU, Indiana, Memphis, Texas, UConn, and Georgia Tech. And the first thing I thought of when I read that list was the meme where it's a bunch of soldiers lined up and then there's the clown in the middle. That's Georgia Tech. I don't know why, but we're going to move on. Sorry, Georgia Tech, caught a stray there. But other than that, pretty good list. Pretty good list for Curtis Givens III here. Villanova's got some competition. What do you see in his recruitment that could lead him to the Wildcats?
Well, I look at this list, and of course you have UConn that's champions, and unfortunately play in the same conference as Villanova. But hey, Villanova's been a very accomplished program as well, and it's some pretty damn good guards come through there. So if you're looking at the progression of players that play a similar position, I think you look at Villanova and say, hey, I want to join that, even though Jay Wright's not there. Excuse me. Hey, I want to join that. I want to be a part of that. And if I want a pro career, which I'm sure he does, being a top 100 guy, it seems like there's certainly a path for him there. But here's something I will say. Yeah, Georgia Tech, like they made the tournament a couple of years ago with Josh Pastner, and then Moses Wright gets COVID, and I thought they could have won a game or two maybe with that Jose Alvarado team. But I'll tell you why, Kyle. I will tell you why Georgia Tech is on this list.
Okay.
Because I also look at Memphis on this list as well. And Memphis, of course, Penny Hardaway, you may have heard of him. Pretty damn good basketball player in his own right. Well, guess what? The new head coach of Georgia Tech, Damon Stoudemire, guy who averaged over 13 points in the NBA.
That's a good point.
So, hey, if you want to go play for a guard, a guy who went pro, you want to learn from that, probably not a bad guy either to go play for. Not to mention he just came from the Boston Celtics and coaching in the NBA for a little bit. So I look at that, and I think it could be, ACC, pretty damn good basketball conference still. Curtis Givens goes to Montverde right now, so he's getting a lot of eyes on him. No shock to see a list of power schools like this. But that to me is kind of like the toughest part of this. It's like, okay, well, if you're a guard and you want to go pro, there's 2 teams on this list that had some pretty damn good NBA guards on them, and that's what I think scares me a little bit. Not to mention you have UConn on there, Rodney Carey. I mean, he recruited a lot of guys to go to Texas on last year's team.
Yeah.
So it's a good list. Hopefully, we can get an answer, I guess, by the end of the summer. But good to see Nova in on the mix here on a top 100 guy. But very, very good list here as well. You can get an NBA coach, Mike Woodson, at Indiana. I personally am a Matt McMahon fan at LSU. They started out good last year, and then they really crawled to the finish line and did not finish the year very well. But you want good coaches, experienced coaches, and good programs. This is a damn good list for Curtis Givens, and we'll see how it shakes out for him.
Yeah, this list is no slouch. I'll tell you that much. And all right, you make a good point about Georgia Tech. I'll take like half of that back because the coach matters. I mean, Damon Stoudemire obviously has coaching experience in the NBA. Was a great NBA player for a number of years, but Georgia Tech they just don't have the history or anything like that, or the recent history at least, that the rest of the teams on this list do. So that's where that came from. But playing for a guard who was a good NBA player, it makes sense. I'm not gonna argue with that. But very, very tough competition for Mr. Givens. So we'll see where that goes. All right, some scheduling notes to wrap up here. Really just the one schedule note, and then we'll go over the rest of this team's non-conference as of right now. But Villanova will be hosting Maryland in the Gavitt games, which is interesting because it's a Hakeem Hart revenge game. Obviously, just transferred to Villanova from Maryland. They played in the Gavitt games last year. The Wildcats did. They played at Michigan State, lost 73-71. Very close game. Maryland was not in the Gavitt games last season, so this will be their now I don't know if it's their first time playing, but first time in a couple years at least. It'll be Friday, November 17th at the Finn. And Maryland's had good success against Maryland. Villanova has good success against Maryland, 4-1 all time. The last one was a 74-66 win for the seventh ranked Wildcats at the Wells Fargo Center. So listen, this could be a very, very interesting game, especially with the English, the Hakeem Hart narrative. Thank you. What do you make of this? This definitely would be a pretty good non-conference game for the Wildcats.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to talk about their non-conference schedule as it stands right now. And it's a very, very good one with a lot of good opportunities to earn some potential quad one wins and build themselves a tournament worthy resume before they even get into conference play. So I think this is a really good team to get. Of course, they made the tournament last year. They beat West Virginia in the round of 64 before losing to Alabama, who started late and they lost to. But Jameer Young is coming back. Pretty good team still for Kevin Willard down there in College Park. Really good first year for him. Really good first year for him to make the tournament, win a game, because he unfortunately did not really have great success in the tournament at Seton Hall. So, hey, pretty good year for Kevin Willard. This is a good team. They're going to play a Power 5 team. You're going to get them at home. That's definitely big for them as well. So, yeah, this is a very, very good game to get on their schedule. You mentioned the last time they played, Nova was ranked number 7. They won that game at the Wells Fargo Center. Malik Waynes led that team in scoring, and Corey Fisher was second behind them. Some really good Nova guards. Malik Waynes being a Roman Catholic guy from Philadelphia. But how about that? Maryland, coached by Gary Williams, who won the national championship with them in 2002 with a team that had Juan Dixon, who's the head coach of Coppin State right now, Chris Wilcox, who I believe won a championship with that Celtics team with Rondo and Paul Pierce, all those guys. And Steve Blake as well. You know, that I will never forget that video of him, throwing games.
Anytime I hear the name Steve Blake, I don't think of
that.
Lakers. I don't think of the NBA. I think of
Just think of him
I
throwing
think of him
punches
putting up the
practice.
hands, man.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But hey, really, really good game, and they'll get it at home. I was surprised to see this not be a Wells Fargo Center game. I guess they're gonna save those for perhaps the Big East regular season, because there's gonna be a lot of really good, it's gonna be a potentially an even better conference this year.
Yeah.
So perhaps they're saving their Wells Fargo Center games for Big East play, or potentially one that we're going to talk about now. But I think this could easily sell out. You would have on a Friday too. You would definitely have some Maryland people coming up here, and you could damn near sell out the Wells Fargo Center. So I saw it at the Finn, and I was like, this could easily be played in South Philly.
Well, listen, they'll sell out the Finn. They'll sell out
Absolutely,
the Finn for
100%.
that. I mean, especially it being so close to Thanksgiving and really early in the season. I mean, yeah, they'll have good attendance for that game regardless. But let's break down this Nova non-conference schedule right now. This is as it is right now. There's definitely still more games to be added. But opening the season against American, which we went over last episode, they will be playing at home against UCLA, which will be a tough matchup for sure. They have the Battle for Atlantis, which we obviously don't know everyone they're playing yet, but the teams included in this year are Michigan, North Carolina, Arkansas, Memphis, Texas Tech, Northern Iowa, and Stanford. Very, very good field, very good competition there. So they're going to have probably, 3 games, I think?
Could
2 or
be,
3?
I think it could be up to 3.
Up to 3. Really, really competitive games there. Obviously, the Gav games versus Maryland, which we just went over. The Big East Big 12 Challenge, which will be at Kansas State this year. Not an easy place to play. They'll have 3 Big 5 games, of course, and 1 game still to be named. So, listen, we know most of Villanova's non-conference schedule. It's a pretty good one. It's a pretty good one. Where do you rank this one, if you can remember, in terms of recent non-conference? I know they always play in these big non-conference tournaments early in the season in November, December. They always pack their schedule pretty well because they're blue blood. People want to play them just as much as they want to play other teams. But I feel like this year is really up there with some of the ones they've had in the past.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I know they played Virginia in years past. I think of the one particularly 2 years ago where they made the Final Four,
Yeah,
and they had to go to UCLA and play at Pauley Pavilion, and then they flew to Baylor where they scored like 36 points in that Davion Mitchell team. Or excuse me, that was the year after. It was the year because they Nova lost to Baylor in the Sweet 16. They beat Winthrop. North Texas upset Purdue. They beat North Texas, and they had to play Baylor, who won the championship that year, without their point guard, without Gillespie.
yeah,
So those guys just hounded them. So then Scott Drew was like, our toughest game was Villanova. Let's schedule them. So they went down to Waco to go play them. They were awful. Baylor's defense was pounding that game. It was one of the best defensive games I've ever seen. They kept a Jay Wright team under 40 points. It was incredible. But that year they did the UCLA, they did Baylor, and then they played. I believe they were in Uncasville in Connecticut, and they played at the Hall of Fame, or they played at Mohegan Sun, and they had to play Tennessee, and they had to play Purdue
I do remember
with
that.
Ivy.
Yeah,
So like you look just those four games right there, you're like, oh my god, like those are four top 15, top 20 teams right there, and those were like four of their first six or something like that. So I look at that schedule, and and to me, that's what got them acclimated almost to like go play in a Final Four, get ready. Like they'd say, get ready for the Big East and go up to the Dunk and win a game against Providence with an all-time year. Like they did that the whole year. They went and played top teams all year. We saw two of them. That year that Nova made the
yeah,
Final Four in Philly, we saw Purdue and we saw UCLA play. So like just how good those teams were that they played right off the bat. So certainly a really, really good. And that, of course, was their Feast Week tournament at Mohegan Sun, was the Tennessee and Purdue teams that they had played, and they lost to that Purdue team. But that I like teams that do that, and of course you have your bye games. They play the Big Five games as well, which unfortunately the last few years haven't been like highly rated Ken Palm games, I guess, that are going to be a quad one or quad two win for you. But I like teams that do that. I love the Jay Wright scheduled very, very hard. And they're going to have another tough slate here. K-State will still be good. They won't
yep.
be as good as they were last year, but they got Tyler Perry from North Texas. They
No,
will still be good.
Arkansas is a top 10 team.
Yeah, it depends who they get in the draw here. I think UNC will be a lot better. You know how much I love Eric Musselman in Arkansas. They're going to be very good. Of course, he just brings in transfer after transfer after
Yep.
transfer.
Memphis.
Texas Tech, I think, will be a bit of a problem. I really like Grant McCaslin. They're going to play very slow, just like he did at North Texas, and play very good defense. And Memphis, I think, will still be solid last year. So here you have your Feast Week tournament. You're still going to have some good opportunities for a win. Stanford's not going to be good. Harrison Ingram left. They do have Jared Bynum, who, of course, played at Providence and at St. Joe's. But Stanford, you should beat. UNI, you should beat. But very, very good non-conference schedule here. That UCLA game, of course, is the return game for when Nova went out to Pauley Pavilion and played there and unfortunately lost in overtime. This will be the return game. That, to me, screams a Wells Fargo Center
Yeah,
game to have
I
down
hope
there.
so.
Now, it's this year or the year after. UCLA is going to join the Big Ten, so this is just going to be another run-of-the-mill
Yeah,
East
I
Coast road
think
trip for them.
next year, 24,
Yeah.
25 is the first year.
So this will get them acclimated, I guess, to which that doesn't make any sense to me. You're telling me you're going to go play Rutgers or like
Penn State,
Indiana, you know what I mean? Maryland.
especially for football too. Like that's like
Yeah.
they're gonna play. They're gonna UCLA and USC are gonna fly to Rutgers to play a game in November.
At noon. Like,
It's gonna
or
be a
you
noon
know what I
kickoff
mean?
on
Like
Fox. Like,
it's
yeah,
crazy.
dude,
It doesn't make much sense to me, but that's
it's all this. It's all
not me
this.
make yeah, I mean they're gonna make a ton of money, but that doesn't scream like play what's best for the student athletes and players. That doesn't
Like
that
Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC. Sure, I
it's
mean
still
it's close
regional.
enough.
Yeah,
It's
it's
close
regional.
enough. I
Yeah.
mean I think they belong in the Big 12. That's close enough. It makes
Yeah,
sense. This just makes no sense.
yeah.
Makes no
Also,
sense.
that UCLA game is very winnable because I love Mick Cronin. I don't this dude.
Yeah.
He took his Cincinnati teams and he brought it to, like, you think of Cincinnati, it's like Rust Belt. You know what I mean? Like those rugged defensive teams. He basically brought that to like Sunshine and Hollywood. Like it works, and
Yeah.
they were awesome. And I wish that Dembona would have been healthy because I think they would have beat. They finally would have freaking beat Gonzaga last year,
There's a
and
chance I
they
pick them to win the chip if they
like
don't get hurt.
that team. If Jalen Clark and Dembona were healthy, if you told me that's the best team in America,
Not gonna argue.
I think I could live with that. A UConn UCLA Final Four game would have been awesome. Or elite, it would have
No,
been
they would have
Elite
played in
Eight.
the Elite Eight. They
Yeah, it
would have
would have
played in
been
the
an
Elite
awesome
Eight.
game. Would have been an
Oh my
awesome game.
God.
So, but they, Jaime Jaquez leaves. Looks like Tiger Campbell's out. Adem Bone is going to be in the draft. Amari Bailey's
Bailey
going. Jalen
draft.
Clark's going to the draft. They're
Yeah.
just losing so much.
And they'll get
And
guys,
that's,
but they'll be young.
yeah, that's the thing that sucks. Like, you guys move on. It's like, well, you can throw together a team in the portal, but it's probably not going to be as good. And I really like what Mick Cronin's doing there. I want to see him win one because I do think he's that good of a coach. And he just couldn't get there at Cincinnati.
Yeah.
But then you give him a Power Five team, and he went to the Final Four in the COVID year, and they made the Sweet 16, and Caleb Love got hot at Wells Fargo Center and sunk them. And then last year, like, they were up, they couldn't make anything in the second half. They finally get the lead back, and then Julian Strawther hits like a 30-some footer to sink him. It's like I'm a Mick Cronin fan. I wanted to see him go farther, but very
Yeah.
winnable game there. I think K-State's a very winnable game, but going to Bramlage Coliseum, that's if you watch any games there this year, very tough place to play.
Yeah.
Very, very tough place to play at K-State. But I see some really good opportunities for some quad one wins here to build them a tournament resume before conference play starts. Because unfortunately, with the injuries, they didn't have that go. They pretty much needed to have. They didn't. Nova had no room for error once conference play started. They kind of exhausted their losses in the non-conference slate, which didn't really fare well for them come regular season play. But I think that will change this year. They'll need to stay healthy, of course, which I hope that they will. I don't know that for sure. But if that's the case, they stay healthy. This is certainly a team that will have a tournament resume come the start of the year.
I mean, they certainly have the talent to do so. And they just have to not start off like the last year. I mean, that tournament up in Oregon killed them. They got blown out by 3 teams and they just
Yeah. Lost to
I mean also
Portland by a lot.
yeah.
Like Oregon, look, Oregon was hurt though, but they were
They
starting
were.
walk-ons.
Yeah.
And who they play first, and then Iowa State. That Nova was kind of the first team to fall to Iowa State when they went on their ascension and they went on their run and they
Yeah.
beat UNC,
That was a
who's
close
ranked
game though, if I
number one.
remember.
Yeah,
The Iowa
it went
State
to
game.
overtime too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I
that was a
mean,
close game. Team was
I
way
know
better than
that
we thought.
yeah. Yeah. And I know they were without Whitmore and more in that one too, but still, I mean, it was just a brutal showing. But they're hoping to start better this year. And I think they will. I think they will. They definitely, but it will be a tough schedule. As to wrap up our point here, it will be tough. But it's a good thing because I think it'll get them battle tested for the tournament. Which oftentimes non-conference schedules like this do. So that is that, and that's pretty much all we got here. Any final thoughts, sir?
I did want to bring up one thing.
Okay.
I saw, and this kind of on the NIL front, because look, I'm all for the guys getting paid, like I am. Especially, like I remember a couple years ago when you had Zion at Duke when they played UNC at home and Barack Obama was sitting courtside and probably paid a couple $1,000s for that seat. Like you're crazy to think that like Zion should not have seen at least a little bit of money because people were there to see
Yeah.
on the big stage on ESPN, biggest rivalry in the sport. But there's some aspects of it that are out of control with pay for play, and even when a guy is committed to a school, people are trying to lure him away. Look at college football. Jordan Addison didn't leave Pittsburgh for any reason because USC promised him a ton of money. Can't
Well,
convince me
and
otherwise.
Caleb Williams, but
Still, like
but
and I
yeah,
think
but
Pat
yeah.
Narduzzi was a little upset because he had a guy that was under scholarship and was committed to him, had an awesome year for him with Kenny Pickett, and then leaves because USC promises him, this, that, and then some. But it just happened in college basketball. Cam Spencer is transferring from Rutgers, who painfully they get left out of the tournament field last year. But he's leaving Rutgers. People are dangling NIL dollars in front of his face that he probably can't pass, unfortunately. And it seems like there's one school in particular that needs players that did it. They didn't announce any names, but I'm here to give a prediction. I think it was Georgetown. He did a couple. He did before he was at Rutgers, like 3 years at Loyola, Maryland. I think it was Georgetown
See it.
that was dangling money in front of him, that's trying to lure him away. And then Geo Baker, who of course played at Rutgers, was talking about how he wants to, continue, like he wants to be a part of the NIL collective there and help guys out. And then I was reading an article, because I typed in like Cam Spencer NIL or Rutgers or something like that on Twitter to try and find more info about it. And an article came up on Outkick, and a lot of people have opinions on the guys that run that or whatever. But I just read the article strictly for the content. And you had NIL people, I believe it's called Knights of Raritan or Raritan. I don't know how you say it, but I don't want to get the pronunciation wrong there. That's like the NIL collective up at Rutgers, and they're basically saying that like for each year, they need like $10 million to stay competitive. 6 to 7 million of that going to football. Like think about how crazy that is. Every single year for college athletics, it's like, yeah, to retain the best talent and keep the best guys. Now, basically, this is ripping the Band-Aid off because we know guys are getting paid.
Oh
We
my
know.
God.
But now that this is like public knowledge and it's like, oh yeah, well, we need this. Like now it's like kind of eye-opening to see that it takes that much money to be like, all right, well, we're a D1 program. We want to be competitive. Well, we need $6 to $7 million a year. A Big Ten program needs that much money to stay competitive in the Big Ten. What do you think it's like in the SEC? Got to be double that at some schools, maybe.
For football, especially.
So
yeah,
I'm all for it. I don't mind these guys get paid, especially if they do an appearance, they sell merch. Absolutely, 100% deserve to make money off of that, of course. But now I see these numbers and I'm like, it's gonna take $10 million a year and it's basically going to two teams. It's basically going to the men's basketball and the football team. And then there's maybe like the way the Rutgers people were talking about it was like 6 to 7 mil for football, 2 to 3 for men's basketball, and about $1 million on the sports.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy to keep an athletic department afloat. It's like, yeah, outside donors, we need 10 million.
And like, can they get that? Probably, but like
A school
still.
like Rutgers, yeah, being in New York, yeah, like area, you probably have a lot of people maybe on Wall Street that own big businesses that could give you that. But on a yearly basis, a lot of money.
The smaller schools are going to be struggling.
Yeah. So, and I think that and I've seen a bunch of tweets about this. People are like, give it some time, and this pay for play will kind of die down. I guess it's easy at the beginning for schools to offer a Jordan Addison or somebody be like, hey, here's $3 million to come here, and then he gets there and it's like nowhere close to what he was promised. I think when that starts to get weeded out and players like are promised this, they don't get it. I think the margins start to go down, and then the price tags go down a little bit, and maybe it's a little more palatable for some people.
Yeah.
But it's just whatever, man. They ripped the Band-Aid off. They said, all right, you can do it. You can get paid. NIL, go ahead. And it's like kind of getting out of control, and the money's talking, the money's flying.
Money talks, man. Money
Sure does.
Money really talks.
Sure does.
Yeah, I mean, like there will be a solution at some point. It's just so new. I almost kind of relate it to sports betting, like in America. Like it's so new and there's so few regulations. I feel like that it's just going wild. People can do whatever they want. The big NIL collectives of the big schools, they can, like you said, dangle money in players' faces and be like, hey, here's however many $1 million or however many hundreds of thousands of dollars, come play for our school. And, in the same breath for sports betting, it's like the sports looks to be like, no, that bet that you put in that we messed up on, that doesn't count. We're canceling it. They can, mess up with promos and stuff like that. So it's similar there, but it's unfortunate. However, as we go further along with this, we also, we're getting a new NCAA president too, or I guess we do now have a new NCAA president, the former governor of Massachusetts. Um, things will get sorted out at some point. So when that happens, don't know. Have no idea. I'm not going to speculate.
Yep.
Hopefully soon. Probably not. But there will be probably more regulations as this continues to get refined and be more mainstream, I guess is the word for it. Even though,
Yeah.
I mean, it is now, but it's, we're in year 2 or 3 of this. So it's very new.
But I did want to say one thing. Happy Memorial Day, everybody. Stay safe, have a ton of fun if you get on the beach or barbecue or do anything like that. So summer's here. Let's have ourselves a summer. Let's have a great time. Everybody stay safe and enjoy your Memorial Day.
Yeah.
The weather, I think, for once should be, because I feel like it rains almost every Memorial Day down the beach.
Honestly.
I'm knocking on wood. I think the weather's supposed to be pretty nice.
Good. Good. Yes, I know
So
you will probably be at the beach. I don't think I will be this weekend. I'm gonna be well, first of all, if you're not watching anything on TV on Saturday night, and you have Apple MLS season pass, make sure you tune in to Union at NYCFC. I will be there producing the radio call for that for the Union. That's what I do. Um, but besides that, I'm gonna be babysitting my dog because my parents are gonna be away. So me and Murph are gonna have a weekend. I'm very excited about that. Um, and that's pretty much all I got. But yes, please be safe. Definitely say this a lot around New Year's Eve, but Memorial Day is a pretty big drinking weekend too. Don't get behind the wheel. Call an Uber, call a friend, walk if it's safe, bike it's safe, whatever you gotta do. Just maybe not bike so much, but don't get behind the wheel of a car, or any motor vehicle for that matter. But have fun, enjoy yourself. And yeah, with that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in as always. Make sure you check us out on YouTube, like, subscribe, keep up the support there. Make sure you follow us on our social media channels at Big Five Pod, Instagram and Twitter. And of course, make sure you listen to audio only versions on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And like we said, we appreciate you guys so much. And we'll see you next week.